Living Muslim.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah and welcome to Living Muslim. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you all for joining us. Today we're speaking about marriage, and as marriage plays a very big role in the life of every single believer, we're here today to ask the question, what is a halal wedding and how can I have a halal certified wedding? Joining me today in the studio is my very special friend and our very dear guest, Sheikh Bilal Dannoon, who is also known on the streets as the Love Doctor. Sheikh Bilal, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, and thank you so very much for joining us.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and jazakumullahu khairan for having me on your show.
Sheikh, I feel very special. I'm falling in love all over again just having you here. It's a real, it's a real honor to have you. Sheikh, marriage is a real big thing, and the wedding is a really big thing. But before we go to the wedding, I wanted to ask, what are some of the things one should look for when they're looking for a partner, when they're looking for a spouse? What are some of the halal things that people should be looking for?
Absolutely. It's very important that you are in a very healthy marriage. You don't want to end up in a toxic marriage because that's going to have a ripple effect. It's going to affect every other part of your life. It's going to affect your emotional state. It's going to affect your physical state. It's going to affect your career. So you do want to be married to the right person, and you do want to do your due diligence, or in other words, do your homework, making sure that you are marrying a person who's going to give you that happiness and that fulfillment that you're looking for in your future. Somebody that, if Allah is to bless you with children, you can say, I honestly would love for my children to be like that person. So it is really, really important that you invest time, money, whatever it is, that's going to ensure that you're going to marry somebody who is a triple M.
Triple M.
A triple M, that's right. A triple M is...
Enlighten me, Chef.
Okay, this is like, this stands for Muslim marriage material. Okay? You want somebody seriously that is really going to make you feel good about you. Somebody that is going to be your number one fan, that you actually truly feel that that person is my number one fan.
Oh, Sheikh, this is too much, man. Do these people really exist?
Absolutely, absolutely. But you just need to do your homework. I mean, let's think about it, Brother Hoblos. I mean, before we get into any career, we go to university, we go to school, we go to university, we go to college, we go to TAFE. SubhanAllah, any sort of work that you want to do, any sort of career that you want to take, that you ensure that you do your homework, that you get some training, you do some courses. And marriage is no difference in this day and age, whereby, unfortunately, I know in the Western world, 50% of marriages end up in divorce.
Wow.
And these are people who,
it's a big figure,
who were very, very happy, once upon a time, and then they end up being divorced, and that can be quite devastating in many ways.
How much should one investigate, or how high should the bar be? I know sometimes people, the criteria is so high, they never end up finding a partner.
I think you need to be reasonable in your expectations. Generally speaking, the older you get, the more pickier you become. How high? Well, there's a saying that, subhanAllah, that I endorse, and that is, prior to marriage, open up your eyes 100%. Look for absolutely everything. Ask all the questions that are important to you. But after marriage, close your eyes 50%. Because none of us are perfect, and a perfect marriage really is about two imperfect people that never give up on each other. So it's all about asking the right questions, having maybe a short list for yourself, knowing what you want. And as the saying goes, if you don't know what you want, you're going to get what you don't want. Are you with me?
Yeah.
You want to make sure that you are marrying, that you put down, even if you have to put it on a piece of paper, and take a note of the things that you do want, and ask yourself, does this person meet the things that I really want in a marriage?
Sheikh, when it comes to engagement, what is the Islamic perspective of engagement, and how long should one be engaged for?
An engagement in Arabic is known as the khitbah, not to be mistaken for the khutbah, which is
Right.
a sermon. So the khutbah, the engagement, is whereby somebody, a suitor, a man, a boy, who's ready to get married, has come forward and asked for a woman's hand. And there's been an acceptance on the part of the woman and her family. Once there is an acceptance that, yes, we accept you to be in the process of now getting ready and getting to know our daughter, and then there is a marriage after that, then subhanAllah, that actually is the engagement period. And during this period, no other suitor can come along and ask for her hand. So that's what engaged means.
So is that like it's put on hold?
Yeah, absolutely. And she can call it off, and he can call it off as soon as there are some red flags. They might see some red flags, and either one of them or both of them, and they decide that they're not compatible. And it's really important that just because you've made that commitment, just because you've gotten engaged, it doesn't mean that you need to follow through. It doesn't mean that you have to, that's it, follow through with this marriage if you feel that you're not yourself around that person, if you don't feel comfortable.
So there's no religious obligation?
As in, there is no. It's a very informal. It's a formal but informal agreement at the same time,
Right.
whereby, hey, this woman has been spoken of, so everybody back off. We're not accepting any more, door knocking, so to speak. Yeah. Okay, and then until either she breaks it off or he breaks it off.
Because you do find that, and I've come across a few of these scenarios where. I'll come across a young guy who's really stressed out, and I'll say, what's going on? And he's having some issues with his fiance, I guess, if you like.
That's right.
But I can't help but feel that he feels that he's religiously obliged to marry her simply because they're now engaged. So I think going back to what you were saying, that you don't necessarily have to go through, rather the engagement is a period to see, will this work out?
Absolutely.
Or not?
Absolutely. Because how else are you going to get to know her? From an Islamic perspective, you're not allowed to be alone with her, alone, with the opposite gender. So yes, the engagement period allows you to get to know this person, and you can ask all the questions that you want pertaining to your goals, your vision, your objectives. And you did ask a question earlier, how long should you be engaged for? Islam did not specify a period of engagement. So as long as it takes to know that this person is the right person, as long as it takes for you to be maybe financially ready, right. Okay. So there isn't a minimum number of days, weeks, months, what have you. But then again, you don't want to be prolonging the process too long. As soon as you have determined and found out, this person is right for me.
Sheikh, I just want to go back very quickly. You said something that that engagement is a period where either the man or the woman can turn around and say, look, this is not going to work. Now, you do tend to find, unfortunately, in our community, that there is a big stigma for the woman where, if she doesn't want to go ahead with it, she's maybe not happy with the person, it almost becomes impossible for her to sort of speak out. What is the best way for a woman to turn around and say, look, this is not going to happen? Is this something that she has to say directly to the young man, or does she tell her father and then her father deals with it?
Whatever's going to be the best outcome for her.
Right.
With it, and it may be in her best interest to go through her father and say, Dad, look, things aren't really looking too good for this gentleman, and I'd like you to speak to him and tell him, look, that we're pulling the plug in the best possible way. And it's about accepting, and it's about moving on, and
there's no hard feelings usually.
No hard feelings. There shouldn't be any hard feelings.
Because again, unfortunately, you do find that when an engagement doesn't work out, you do find that there is some bitterness. This family will no longer speak to this family anymore, and it's like this really big. But I mean, from what you're saying, one should just let it go, move on.
Absolutely, short-term pain is better than long-term pain.
Right.
So you want to cut your losses. You want to basically, you don't want to enter into a marriage, and then you're going to have to go through all the expenses and what comes, with getting married, and emotions and all of that, and building all of that up, and then saying, I never really wanted to be in this in the beginning. Well, why didn't you say something? Yeah. I think you need to be brave. I think couples, fiancés need to be brave and say, look, I don't think you are right for me. You're an excellent person, I mean, you can have two beautiful people, but they're just not compatible.
Yeah,
So compatibility is something that the scholars of Islam have spoken about, and that compatibility is something that you will find out by discussing and having a dialogue about, what is it that that you really are looking for in your marriage, in your future.
Okay, so Sheikh, I've chosen my partner. We got engaged. We're happy. We're going to go ahead with it.
Excellent.
Now, where to from here? Islamically, what's the difference between a KK, Kat Piktab, right, and the wedding? Is there a difference between the two?
Yes, absolutely. The KK, as you called it, or the Katbu Kitab, also known formally as the nikah. Okay, the nikah is the contract itself, the marriage contract itself, right?
So Islamically, is that the wed? I don't know if I don't know if the word wedding is correct. But once I do the Kat Piktab, are we Islamically married?
As Islamically you are, but there may be some conditions. There may be some conditions whereby, okay, we've engaged in an Islamic contract, and a nikah or an Islamic contract means that there is the the wali, who is usually the father if he's still around. Right. If he's not around, it could be her brother to represent her. So there needs to be some representation for the woman, be it the father, be it the brother, be it the grandfather, be it the paternal uncle, be it she could be a divorcee. And it could be her son, okay? And if there's nobody to be her wali, then it becomes the imam or the sheikh or the celebrant, right? There has to be two Muslim male witnesses. There has to be a dowry or a dawah that's written down in the contract. So it's quite a serious engagement here. It's a formal contract. Now, what happens? Everybody's going to do it a little bit differently. Some people will have this contract done, and they will have an actual party or a celebration of some sort. And then they just move out. That's it. It's done. It's a combo. I think, where
Double hit combo.
Exactly,
Where you do your KK, you have a little bit of
a ceremony. And that ceremony, by the way, is known as the walima. Right. The walima is the wedding feast or the banquet. And this is also part of Islam. It's a sunnah to have a banquet. It's a sunnah. And actually, according to some scholars, it's actually obligatory to publicly announce and declare that you're getting married. Marriage shouldn't be some secretive thing that that you do. And this reminds me of the hadith that's found in Bukhari, the hadith of the companion Abdul Rahman ibn Auf. He came from Mecca to Medina, and then when he was in Medina, subhanallah, he was actually offered one of the Ansar, who was a very rich man. There was a man from amongst the Ansar. He actually offered one of his two wives. Back then, they had, when the Muslims came to Medina, they had nobody. And this man said, look, choose one of my wives, I'll divorce her, and you can marry her after her iddah. And so this man, Abdul Rahman ibn Auf, he said, no, I just want to go to the marketplace. So he goes to the marketplace and he works for a few days. And then, he comes back, he sees the Prophet ﷺ, and he's got this, yellow dust on him, and this scent. And the Prophet ﷺ says to him, did you get married? Because it was a cultural thing that you'd apply, you'd cake on this scent. You can, just like every groom, puts on his best
Chanel.
Whether it's what is it, Chanel or.
Don't act like you don't put on, Sheikh. I smelt it on you before.
Whatever it is that you put on. SubhanAllah. So when the Prophet ﷺ, he realized that he had it on. He goes, "Did you get married?" He said, "Yeah, I got married." He said, "What did you give her as a gift?" He said, "I gave her some gold equivalent to the weight. I think it was of a date or the date seed." Right. And then the Prophet ﷺ, he said to him, "Awlim walau bishah," that give a wedding banquet or a wedding feast, even if it's a sheep. So that's the actual the Islamic way. That's the actual feast now. So some people will do it all together at once. In some cultures, they'll do the KK, as you said, first, and then they will actually do the wedding feast. Maybe they might even do that month down the track. Because once you now Islamically have gone into KK, you can actually, hold hands, be alone, go out and about. You want to choose your furniture. You want to go to different receptions, what have you.
So one can do his KK and delay, say, having his walima.
Absolutely.
Sometime. So to maybe give a scenario, maybe one, he's gotten engaged, he likes his partner, she likes her partner. There's really no reason for them to not get married, but they maybe cannot afford to say, let's say, move out at the time. So they may do their KK then, just to make all of their interactions halal,
Absolutely.
and then maybe not move out until sometime later where they may do a walima, whatever it is, 6 months or even a year down the track. This is fine.
That's right. And some people might do their KK, for example, today, and then their walima tomorrow. Or they might do, far apart. So it all works.
Okay, but there's no restriction.
There's no hard and fast rule.
Right. Okay.
But the hard and fast rule is to be married. There are certain requirements that you have to meet according to Islamic Sharia. Okay, and the sunnah to celebrate your KK or your nikah is something called a wedding or the walima.
طيب Sheikh, the golden question. What is a halal wedding? Or what is the ideal halal wedding?
Well, I guess
share some thoughts, some tips.
I guess what we have to keep in mind here is the pleasure of Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. Always building having strong foundations in everything that we do. Okay, and so the same applies with a wedding. With a wedding, you've got to have like strong foundations. You don't want to build your marriage on weak foundations, on displeasing Allah. Okay, you don't want to be doing things that bring about the anger of Allah. At the end of the day, who's going to bless your wedding? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Who's going to bless your wealth? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Who's going to bless you with children? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we need to keep the end in mind always.
So you don't want to get off the wrong foot.
You don't want to do that. I mean, we don't want to go into the details now of, Muslims, generally speaking, they know what's halal and they know what's haram. As the Prophet ﷺ said, halal is clear and haram is clear. Yeah, there are some doubtful matters, and when you are in doubt, ask. Pick up the phone, call your local imam or your sheikh. Pick up the phone or go to the masjid, go to the Islamic center. Ask, hey, I'm about to perform a wedding, and I really want to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because I want Him to bless my marriage. Okay, I want to be in a blessed marriage. When you get married, as you know, Brother Hoblos, that when you get married, that you're completing half of your faith, half of your deen. So you do want to start on a good footing.
It's probably one of the biggest acts of ibadah that you would probably do as far as...
And that's what the Prophet ﷺ said. He said, when the servant of Allah marries, by doing so, he perfects half of his deen, half of his religion.
Because there's a lot of things you cannot implement in deen until you get married.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. Like the fact that now that you are married, that you're responsible for your wife, you're responsible for your children. The wife is also responsible towards her husband and her family. So an ideal Islamic wedding is one whereby there is a feast. Okay, you have invited your friends. You're not restricting it to a certain cohort or group of people. So I'm only inviting my rich friends, for example, because they're going to bring me the good gifts.
Yeah, there are no flowers and no gifts. Hint, give me money.
We've all read those gift cards, haven't we? Yeah. You know what I mean? But we want to invite everybody, and we want to maintain that unity in the community, and invite even with Muslims, inviting non-Muslims to our wedding so they can see. I've conducted many marriages where there are non-Muslims that are present, and they say, "Wow, that was interesting. We never knew this. We learnt a lot today from this experience." So this experience, this wedding experience that you have, and we're talking here about, we're in Australia, we're living in the West. It's so important for the West to see our true colours. Who are we?
How do we celebrate?
How do we celebrate? And I think there's a lot that they can learn, and that is a form of da'wah in and of itself. Because the celebrant usually will talk about beautiful things related to love, marriage, the husband's rights, the wife's rights, the duties, how to maintain a very, very healthy marriage. And when people hear that and they go, wow, we had a different image of Islam and marriages, and I get it all the time. People, non-Muslims coming up to me, hey, we never knew that. We weren't really expecting that. We didn't know what to expect.
So, well, look, Sheikh, we are out of time. I really would like to thank you for coming in. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you. Brothers and sisters, I guess there you have it. Marriage is a big thing. So please do take the time to think about who you're going to marry. And I think the golden rule here is no one can sort of really tell you how to have your wedding and what you should and what you shouldn't do. But I think the golden principle is always ask yourself, would Allah be pleased with my gathering? Yeah? So ask yourself, at my wedding, if the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was to come as a guest, Would He be pleased with this gathering? Would He be pleased with what's happening there? And I think that is the most halal wedding, right? So if you want to make your, if you want to make your wedding definitely halal certified, ask yourself, will the Prophet smile if he came to this place, or would he frown? We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless all of our marriages, to bless all of our weddings, to make them as halal as possible. Once again, Sheikh, thank you so very much for coming in. And up until next time, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.